So, hi everyone. Thank you for being here today with us with PlanetCare. I'm really excited today. We have the amazing opportunity to talk to Benjamin von Wong. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to meet Ben through the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Network, and I've been completely inspired and amazed by the work he's doing. So Ben's work lies at the intersection of fantasy and photography and combines everyday objects with shocking statistics. It has attracted the attention of corporations like Starbucks, Dell, Nike, and has generated over 100 million views for causes like ocean plastic, electronic waste, and fashion pollution. Most recently, he was named one of Adweek's 11 content branded masterminds. He is also a host of a top 5% podcast called Impact Everywhere and a creative advisor for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance and the Ocean Plastic Leadership Network. So, hi, Benjamin. It's such an honor and privilege to have you here with us. Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, Ben, with your art, you focus on amplifying positive impact and making it unforgettable. I was wondering, when did you set on this path? Is it something that you always wanted to do, or was there kind of like a life-changing moment or event or realization?
Yeah, I think like as with most things in life, it's a gradual progression. And, when we look back at our lives, sometimes things seem very obvious, but while you're doing them, it's a little bit less so. I actually started off my life as a hard rock mining engineer. So I had not even an artist background. And over the course of my artistic career, after quitting my day job, the impact piece of it just slowly seeped into the work that I was doing. I started to realize the more projects that I created, that it was the ones that were making a difference that I was most excited about, that I felt most proud of. And then so in 2016, after having experienced some commercial success as a photographer, doing some pretty crazy stunts like tying models underwater or hanging them off rooftops and getting paid to do these crazy projects, just realized that doing crazy for the sake of crazy to make a living was really not as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And so in 2016, I just decided, I'm gonna commit to using my art to make a difference. Now, I wasn't planning on being an environmentalist. I wasn't planning on anything in particular. I just wanted to make a difference. And through experimentation, trial and error, self-education by watching documentaries, I just kind of slipped slowly into the environmental movement. And now today, most of the work that I do is environmentally focused. And here we are.
Wow, congratulations for kind of like switching the path so significantly and being so successful as well. I think, it's fair to say definitely that, anyone who comes across your installations or photos or videos that focus on, be it, plastic pollution or any other pollution that you've been focusing on, is kind of immediately faced with the enormity of the problem, which can otherwise be hard to perceive sometimes. To a lot of people, it's just one cup, it's just one straw. So I was wondering, do you always try to choose projects that help quantify the significance that single actions can have?
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little bit torn because my style has changed over time, and my understanding of the ecosystem of the problems has changed over time. And so, initially I was definitely more focused on individual actions. Like my theory of change was that if more people knew about the problem, then more people would take action. It was very straightforward. But now, so I started doing maybe a lot of ocean plastics work in 2016. Now we're 2021. Plastic pollution is at awareness is at an all-time high, but plastic consumption is also at an all-time high. So awareness doesn't necessarily lead to behavioral change. And so is that really the thing that we need to solve for, right? Ultimately, I think consumers today, the ability for consumer to divest from plastic is sort of being taken away. You can't order a product on Amazon and not have it come in plastic. You can't order clothing today and have it not come with polyester, nylon, spandex, right? Like it's just kind of built into a lot of the supply chain. And so I feel like the individual consumers' ability to make conscious decision is becoming harder and harder. And what that means is that only people of greater privilege can make these harder decisions, because it requires a certain amount of going out of your way of doing things that are not the norm in society. I think that, yes, everyone can make a difference. We can make decisions with our dollar, but that only goes so far. And so it's sort of I think it's a challenge, because you want to communicate both sides of the puzzle. It's, yes, you are important. Your decisions do matter. And yes, it is important for you to talk to your friends and family and share that, because at the end of the day, consumer companies and governments make decisions based on the interests of the consumers, and you need to find ways to signal that. On the other hand, we also need to pressure governments and corporations to also do the right thing. And so when I create my art campaigns, I try to balance that fine line, because at the same time, the people who are sharing my work are ordinary consumers. So they need to feel a sense of ownership of the problem. And I think that we are in a world today that is tired of just signing petitions and just putting something out there and expecting change to happen. There needs to be some kind of ownership to it. So it's like, how do you toe that line? How do you give people a little bit of self-empowerment? And how do you give them the idea that what you're working towards is bigger than you? And it's sort of both at the same time that you need to kind of toe the line on.
Okay, yeah, no, really, really well said. And I think, definitely the change has to happen both, bottom up and top down. And it's also kind of what you were saying. I think it's a really nice segue into the next question that I had for you. And it's about one of your installations, the parting of the plastic sea, in which you've used 168,000 used plastic straws to encourage people to kind of really turn down the single-use straw. And I don't know if you had the chance to watch it yet, but Seaspiracy it's a documentary that's really been making waves in the recent days, so to say. They kind of highlight that, the plastic straws are such an insignificant part of the ocean pollution that they really shouldn't be getting all the attention that they were getting in the past and are getting still, but that we should rather be focusing on discarded fishing gear. So I was wondering if you've had the chance to watch the documentary, and would you be happy to share your thoughts on this?
I have not watched the documentary yet, primarily because I haven't had a day where I felt like today I want to get depressed and watch a documentary. However, I have booked a date night with my family so that we can all watch it together. I'm definitely the most environmentally conscious person in my family unit. I am the only vegan along with my girlfriend, but my parents and my sister and her husband are not. And so I've asked them all to watch it over the weekend. So I will let you know my thoughts then. However, to your point of, yes, 50% of the plastic in the ocean comes from fishing gear. Absolutely. I hear it. I think it's a big problem. How does public awareness lead to solving that problem is a lot less linear of a process. So like earlier in the last question that you just asked me is like, well, how do you toe the line between empowering people so that they can take action? I think one of the things about like single-use plastics is something that we can see, we can touch, we can feel, we can understand. Unlike, let's say, climate change or ocean acidification, which are topics that are a lot harder, equally important, right? Equally important to saving the planet. And so I think it's trying to meet people where they're at. And if people start caring about the oceans through the everyday behaviors of them going out and purchasing products, and it's a way that keeps them connected to the issue, then that's a good thing. For all the waves that Seaspiracy is currently making, I don't think the average person after seeing this knows what to do. They might stop eating seafood, which could be a good thing, tangentially related, but it doesn't actually solve the problem of ghost nets floating in the ocean, right? That's like a whole different level of civic engagement that is currently required. And so I think, I don't think one is better than the other. I think it's really great that a platform like that Seaspiracy, in its title and in its marketing and its storytelling, is drawing new people into the conversation by saying, hey, you've all heard about plastic, right? It's almost weaponizing the fact that everyone knows about the plastic issue, but did you know about this secret dark thing over here in the corner? And it's great from a storytelling perspective. I think it's wonderful that this is the new entry point for so many to discover it. Actually, the reason that I got into the environmental movement was because of its sister film, Cowspiracy. And so after I saw Cowspiracy, that's how that led to my first project that I created around climate change. And so, we need to meet people where they're at. I don't think one is objectively better or worse than the other. I think they each have a role to play. We can always criticize the other side. I mean, like some people would say that, Seaspiracy is over dramatizing. It's casting a negative light on people who have dedicated their lives to saving the oceans, right? Like it's not good and bad. It's not that simple, but it is a story, and stories spread. And if it is, I look at most things in life as not black and white, but shades of gray. Is it doing overall more good than it is harm? Absolutely. And so I love what they're doing. I don't think one is better than the other. And I think people should continue engaging in those kinds of conversations. They're really important.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well said. And, if it's done one thing, it's created a lot of conversations, reached so many people through your work. So I'm assuming that, lots of people also get back to you to maybe let you know how your work impacted or inspired them.
Well, I mean, I have a recent story that just came up where I received a Google News alert in my inbox this February from Vice. Like, so basically, Vice mentioned my name, and I was like, "Oh, what is this about?" I didn't get an interview by them, and I haven't put out a new project, so I was curious. So I checked it out, and it turns out that it was a story about a social entrepreneur in Wuhan, China, called Huang Ningning, who had a small social enterprise where she hired eight people to create upcycled shirts and bags. And I was like, okay, what does that have to do with me? And I was reading it. And then the reason for starting her company, she credited me for the reason that she decided to start her company because of this work that she had seen. And she was working in a factory job prior, and this was the push that she needed in order to create a new job, in order to encourage her to like change this profession. And it's just wild to me that someone that I have never met before, never spoke to, had seen my work and resonated with it so deeply that they decided to go and essentially change the course of her life and dedicate her life towards, protecting the oceans. And I think that's kind of the thing about art. It's like, you never know what kind of ripples you're making in the world. You don't know how you're influencing people in the way that you interact with it and phrase it. And so I think that, maybe the best way to think about it is like, we, in the way that we exist in the world, can only, like, we can't change the world. We can only change how we interface with the world, right? There's this sort of interaction that we have, and we have to figure out how to make the things that we believe in more contagious. We have to make the idea of change more contagious, and we have to make it cool. We have to make it fun. We have to make it interesting. And along the way, more people get wrapped into the fold. I think we focus too often on the transition from like water to ice as change, as like a binary from 0 to 1 degrees. But the truth is, like, you might talk to someone and they might be at like -30. And if you brought them from -30 to -20, you won't see any kind of a state change, but you still made a big difference. And so, very often, and this is true, I think, of all nonprofits and all social enterprises, we only measure that binary moment in time when something shifts from ice into water, and we discount all the extra work that takes place in order to get people there. And I think that's a little bit of a loss. So how do you know if you're doing the right thing? How do you know if it's resonating with people? I think it's a combination of like having faith, like holding faith that what you do matters, and like making sure that you pay attention to acknowledge the positive feedback that comes in, because we as human beings remember a lot better the negative things than we do the positive things. That's like scientifically proven. So we have to like acknowledge that, but you also have to like, have faith that ultimately it is going in the right direction, and that you trust that, you can only do the best that you can do. And it's not about you being the hero and being the person on the stage that's talking. Like, that doesn't mean the change is happening either. It just means you're getting a little bit of recognition, right? So I struggle a little bit with the feedback loops that exist in our current society that don't tell a full picture of everything that's happening.
Well, but I think, it is fair to say that the story you've shared is, if you wanted to talk about the impact that your work had, we pretty much can say that you changed the course of somebody's life, which is very impactful indeed.
Yeah, but it's more than that, right? Like it's like that might just be one story that you've heard, but then there's an unknowing amount of them, and it'll happen. Like I'll be out and I'll meet someone and I'll show them our portfolio, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this project this long ago, and I shared it with my family, and then because of this, like we stopped doing this, or because of this, I started a program inside of my company." That we created the recycling program inside the company. And so there are a lot of stories like this of people who've been galvanized through example, like just through seeing that it was possible, seeing others taking action is contagious because it makes everyone feel like they can be part of something greater.
No, yeah, absolutely agreed. And I've just listened to a podcast where they were saying exactly that. If you just make change or do things differently, but you don't really communicate it, that, you have to communicate what you do, and you have to kind of like put your actions out there and share them with others to really get the desired impact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anyhow, but so I wanted to touch on a little bit about the work that you did for us for PlanetCare as well. So, like I've mentioned, we had the privilege to meet you through the Sustainable Ocean Alliance network, and you've asked us. You've seen what we do. You've seen our microfiber filters and the used cartridges that we collect for refurbishment to close the loop, and you've asked us to actually share a few of the used cartridges with the quote microfibers to see, whether they carry some artistic potential. I was wondering if you can share with us how that went, and how did you find the whole creative process?
Yeah, well, you sent these filters over, and my thought process, the reason I asked for them was like, okay, how do we make filters look exciting? There has to be a way for people to brag about what they do. And so originally my idea was like, well, I didn't know what it looked like. I thought it'd be something fuzzy, almost like a teddy bear, I suppose. And I was like, oh, maybe if there's a way to like backlight this, it could glow and you could see like the little particles. And so you could actually, I don't know, start off, take a picture of it clean, take a picture of it dirty, take a picture of it clean, take a picture of it dirty. And like maybe if you shipped your PlanetCare, because you have you're actually closing the loop on this, you're constantly shipping things back and forth. Well, then is there a way to create like a display box so that when people had their dirty thing, they can brag about it, and that every single time that they've completed a cycle of wash, they would be able to start a conversation about it. By the time I received the one from you guys, it was like super hard and super crusted and super like hard and rigid. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. It doesn't look really good. Don't know what to do with it. And so I honestly just like kept it on next to my desk for weeks. And I didn't know, I just like stared at it and I wasn't too sure what to do. I tried taking some photos. I tested out different lighting and none of it was working until eventually I was just like, oh, maybe it's just about like, maybe I can just ignore the filter piece of it and like figure out like, is there a way to make this look prettier? So what I did was actually went on your website and I looked at like what were the existing images that you guys had taken. And I realized that you had never put some lights inside of the filter itself, which is where I just thought, oh, maybe there's a way to make this kind of interesting. So it looks like a power cell, like a futuristic power cell of energy, like it's glowing. And that's where I kind of landed. So it's a super cheap thing to do. You can put like little fairy lights that cost $1 that are battery powered inside of this thing. And suddenly you've now found a way to make something that is theoretically boring into something a little bit more interesting. I think it unfortunately took away from the bragging piece of the puzzle, which is like, oh, I want to talk about how this thing is capturing microfibers. I don't think it does that, but yeah, that was that was my journey with the microfibers, and where I landed with it.
No, it's everyone in the team was really excited to see the photos, and I think it's fair to say that you showed them in a new light, our new, our new. But this actually wasn't your first experience creating or thinking about, microfiber pollution, as you've previously done a project about microfiber pollution and how our laundry is actually quite toxic without many people really realizing it. So I was wondering, can you share some insights on how the microfiber project that you did previously compared, for example, with the straws or the plastic cup projects that you've also done? Because I think, my guess would be that the awareness out there is quite different on these two issues. So am I assuming correctly? And, can you share a little bit about the reach and the feedback that you were able to get compared with the other projects that you've done?
Yeah, I think it was definitely harder to attract attention to the issues of microfibers. I also did the microfiber project where we created basically a monster out of cardboard and clothing crawling out of the laundry machines. The series was created, I think, in 2017, where microfiber pollution awareness itself was at a lot lower than it currently is today. I think we still have quite a ways to go. I don't think that microfiber pollution is mainstream knowledge yet. It's just getting kind of accepted, I think, in environmental circles and starting to get a little bit of traction. So, this kind of like, I think, points back towards my initial conversation around how, like, we only look at like the transition from 0 to 1 degrees, but like there's, the images in and of themselves can continue to fight the fight and be used for different issues, right? So if you guys use those issues to promote this interview, then that's work that is continuously giving and continuously telling the story and continuously raising awareness. Like the series itself, when I had created it, my call to action was actually I created a little code where people could call out a company. So they just picked a washing machine company and they could say like, hey, did you know that the laundry is toxic? Are you addressing this? And so I did get a couple responses from, I think, LG and Bosch and all that. And they all just said, we're looking into it. And that was the only response that I got. So I did manage to get a couple responses from washing machine companies, but I think that there just wasn't enough traction behind it. And there was equally no clear solution, right? Like you're asking a company to like completely rehaul their research and development. I think the work you guys are doing is pretty exciting because you could actually license out your technology. So you're offering a solution, you're offering a technology. So it could have been a lot more exciting to partner up with someone like you guys instead of partnering up with a bunch of students, but that was just a completely different moment in time. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't regret doing the project. I think it was a really good experience. It was a learning experience for me, even to learn more about the issues and to try to do my best to put my skills to use. And I think that's really what ultimately it's all about. It's doing the best you can with what you have.
No, absolutely. And like you said, the images are just brilliant and very visual and kind of like really tell you what's going on. Because again, microfibers, it's something that you don't really see because it just goes down a gray drain. So,
yeah.
It's not something that's very much in your face, so to say. So to wrap things up, I was wondering if there's something you've been focusing on lately and kind of like going back to what you've said, that you're kind of like seeing things differently now in terms of individual actions and systemic change. Are there any new, exciting, different projects that we can look forward to from you in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most exciting project that I'm working on right now from a project perspective is I'm building a giant levitating faucet that is going to be about 30 feet tall with plastic trash flowing out of it. And I'm going to rebuild this in a couple different locations. Well, I haven't found the locations yet, but ideally it would be a beach, a landfill, a container park, a recycling center, and a city fountain. And so just going to like different places to tell different stories, and it's going to be huge. And so ideally it's perfect to start a conversation. We'll see how it goes. The shoot is supposed to take place in June, and then the project would launch in September. with the Canadian government in a gallery in Paris. So that's sort of one big project I have lined up. The campaign that I'm most excited about that's happening, I think, in the environmental ecosystem right now is February of next year, the United Nations is going to vote on whether or not they want to start pursuing a global treaty around plastics. So think Paris Climate Accords for plastics. And I think building momentum for that would be really, really good, because that's kind of what we need. We need standardization models across both production and recuperation of plastics, since companies are global and waste is global, but these policies are all put together at the municipal level. The problem is the Canadian government isn't one of the supporting people on this treaty yet. And so I can't necessarily use this project to highlight that initiative unless they come on board officially. So it's I'm trying to see if I can use this project to create some pressure internally, but putting pressure on your client is not usually what you want to do. So it's a little bit delicate at that point. Ultimately, the way I've while there's a part of me, I think so, the engineering half of me really wants to control and design a binary solution, right? Like I want to say, as a result of this campaign, this has changed. But the artist side of me is realizing that maybe what would be even more popular than that, what would be even more powerful than that, is to create something that's symbolic, right? And so we talk often about how we need to close the plastic tap. It's really like, it's a very popular sentence. And the reason we need to close the plastic tap is because 85% of plastic goes into landfill, only 15% is recycled. Because you can put any number of statistics, like since the beginning of time, there's over like 60, I forgot the exact statistic of how much plastic has been produced. But like, what if you can create the images that go with the statistics, right? Like, what if you could see these visuals and understand exactly what it represented side by side with something that was more artistic. And so I think for this specific series, I'm gunning for something symbolic and iconic that can be used across any industry, right? Because even someone like you could use this image to talk about how plastics is polluting our water streams, right? Like it's a universal story that can be adapted. And I think when we think of art as opposed to design, art is more like a dance. It's an exchange of energy. I create something, you interpret it in a different way. Design is a little bit more prescriptive. You want everyone to swipe up or double tap, right? Like you're trying to guide people to do these movements, and it's very, very specific. And so I don't know. I'm playing around with something different this time around, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, it sounds really, really interesting, and I can't wait to see what you end up coming with, and to see it kind of being shared far and wide globally.